Howdy, folks. Tom Bowles with Bass Gear Magazine, bringing another Zoom interview to you. And you may notice we've got, 5 different screens going on here and 6 different people because we got 2 on one. But this is one of those collaborative processes that led to a pretty interesting result. And I kind of want to get some of the different players involved. We're here today talking about a USA-made JXB bass from Brubaker Guitars. And it's one of these things that at very first glance, it's an FSO, a fender-shaped object, and you might say to yourself, "Oh, jazz bass, I kind of get it." And you look a little bit closer, you're like, "Oh, okay, it's a PJ. PJs are pretty cool. Maybe I'll play that." Next thing that hits you is this thing is like all blacked out. It's like blacker than black. It's like none more black, right? And we'll get more into that a little bit later on. But then you start playing this thing, and I'm a fan of PJs. Already, it's probably my favorite pickup configuration. And there's some special sauce going on in this instrument. It really kind of caught me by surprise. I mean, I knew Kevin makes great basses. I knew to expect a great bass, but I was just really intrigued by what's going on here. So you dig in a little bit deeper, and there's some unique aspects to this bass, such as the Ray Ross saddleless bridge and the Howard Ulyate pickups that are going on in there. So I want to get all these guys involved, and let's talk about this thing a little bit because it's worthy of a deep dive. It's a pretty darn cool instrument. And I first want to start with Fred Yankello, who ordered this bass and was kind enough to send his personal bass to Bass Gear Magazine to review. So Fred, can you give us a thought about what were you looking for when you ordered this bass?
Yeah, so I've been working with Kevin and John for many years, and actually even Howard. A few years back or so, I ordered some custom pickups from him, and we were looking for some to fix the traditional P problem if it's not reversed, maybe beef up the D and G, and so we had coordinated on some things in the past. But in any event, with this particular instrument, Kevin and John kind of approached me and said, we're going to redo the JXB. We're going to have essentially, forgive me guys, but for lack of a better expression of what you were looking for, like a V.2. What can you give us some input, and what would you like to see? And I'd say, well, I really dig the reverse P with a J setup. We all know that other companies have done it, some beginning with an S and some beginning with an I and others. But I just think that alone, in my humble opinion, really evens out the tone or the volumes across the strings. With that reverse P, you get a little bit of beefiness added to the D and G strings and those associated notes, and you get a little less boom on that E and A. So, and then you got the J, and then of course you got some versatility with the 2 of those there. So that alone was something that I suggested and begged for, quite frankly, with Kevin and John, and then John and I were big fans. We had been both, I think, independently thinking, if not mistaken, John, about the whole blackout thing, and we kind of came together and said, "Let's approach Kevin with it. Do you think he'll like it, or will he kick us out of his shop and say, 'You guys are nuts. Don't even call me again'?" And he went for it. And then then what was brought into the picture, of course, was, we'll get into that more, obviously, but then you got the removable or replaceable modules, the quick load modules you can go passive, active. You can swap them out in a matter of seconds, and you can choose what kind of preamp you want. But there are many other features, the Ray Ross bridge, and like you said, it's just the whole package just works, man. I mean, as soon as I fired this thing up in the shop, I was like, OMG. The tone that roars out of this thing, Howard, your pickups, man, amazing. It collectively, it's an amazing instrument. It's the sustain from the bridge and the poplar body and everything else. It as one collective unit, it is an amazing instrument. So I'll get off my pedestal right for the moment.
And we'll have pictures here so you guys can check out this bass. But when we say this thing's blacked out or whatnot, Kevin, give us some ideas of what all you had to do to really get that black on black aesthetic.
Stain it. Stain a piece of maple. It's all maple. I mean, the neck's all maple. neck and fingerboard. The poplar body it's a painted black. So the satin or the matte color just looks so cool, the matte finishes, and it was basically like, let's stain it. So there's nothing really complicated about it. It's just stain. So I've done it in the past with instruments. I've done a lot of wild creations and so forth. So this was nothing, wasn't that complicated for me. So like I said, just make sure the thing's like sanded right and then stain it, stain it black. And then it just, we thought about painting the fingerboard, which it is painted, it has clear coat on it, but stain. And then a black finish on the body. Yeah, sorry, it's nothing real complicated. So
well, I've seen the blacked out necks, the back of the neck, for a maple neck, but having a blacked out maple fingerboard was pretty cool. I haven't seen many of those.
Yeah. Like I said, in the past, I've done a lot of different things, and staining fingerboards was one of them. Maybe it just never got that much of attention. I don't know, but yeah, this worked. It worked very well. So
and then we went to the carbon fiber pick guards and control plates.
Yeah,
and they are solid carbon fiber. I've told people it shows they're not bulletproof, but it'll slow it down. So if you're playing that kind of bar, but it's a matte plain weave carbon fiber, and that I think just adds to that. That, as you say, none more blackness of the base. When he and I talked about it, he's like, what do you want to see? And I said, I want to see a black hole of the base.
It kind of, it just, it kind of all came together, like just without really even trying. It's weird, because that's how some of the really best ideas come together. It's just not real complicated.
I wanted to ask real quick, has anybody tried Vanta Black, this graphene powder? I've seen them doing airplanes.
We talked about it, but you'd have to clear coat it. It has no wear resistance.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right.
One thing that really works with it too, guys, is that really hit me, and it's a small feature, but the lumen lay, the larger diameter lumen lays along with that matte black, and at a gig, it just pops.
Yes.
Anyway, back to you.
So those little features, like I said, it just kind of, the carbon fiber pick guard, we were faced with the module system trying to, what are we going to use? The chrome plate, the standard Fender chrome plate. And we started sourcing that, and it was really expensive, and we needed it to fit exactly. So John suggested, or whatever, it just came up like, hey, how about carbon fiber? And then, so he started looking around, and that's why we went with the carbon fiber, because we could have it machined exactly how we needed it, and it wasn't super over the top expensive to get it chrome plated and all this stuff. So that's kind of why we went with that. And then it just came about when Fred said, hey, let's do a Black Series base. I'm like, this is perfect.
So when I first saw that, I thought it was a plastic made to look like carbon fiber, but that and the pick guard are actual carbon fiber.
Yeah, they're
cut exact. So each one fits the exact same way.
See, that's
every time.
Yeah, solid.
Nice.
Our accuracy is 1/10 of a millimeter.
Wow.
And that's what we needed, especially for the module system.
Well, and speaking of those modules, I remember when Kevin was showing me some of your replaceable preamps that they replaced through the back, and went through the same holes, and they get like a big set screw in the middle.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is super cool. I never seen anyone else do the preamp swapping. So Kevin, you've been doing that quite a while, but did you like 3D print this module or whatnot? Because it seems like this is a very elegant, super slick system you have going right now.
That's where John comes in, and to do that and to outsource it would have been hugely expensive. And we looked into that because, I got it to a certain point where it was trade show friendly, but to have it in every base that we build is a whole different story. So we started doing, we had started outsourcing some of the 3D printing, and then John said, we need to bring this in-house. We need to do it in here. I said, okay. So that's when we just got the equipment, and he started printing all the little pieces. And I had no idea there was so much technology and just in, the colors, the colors involved that make a nicer print. And but he knows all that. So I rely on him for all the 3D printing aspects. And like I said, the electronics, we went through so many different, like how many revisions?
87 revisions.
87 revisions, until we got it to the point where I feel confident, that being in all the bases now that we build. And that's a little scary because there's still, the instrument building's I've been doing this for 30 years now. So, and there's always things that can happen along the way. So this is a whole new thing. And it's like, it's a little, I think we got it to a point where we're very confident in it. Let's put it that way.
And for the end user, it's 3 screws and module comes out.
Yeah.
Put a new module in. I mean, it's, you could hit mute on your tuner pedal, swap them in between songs. It's that fast and easy.
We left the 3 screws in just for the more rock solid connection. Eventually, if we can come up with a better connection beyond that, allows you to pull it out with and have a secure fit. The 3 screws kind of ensures that it's going to stay in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 magnets, one in each module, one in the base, and that's what pulls it together. And now we'll hold it fine. But if you're going to go out and pretend you're Flea,
yes,
it ain't staying in. You gotta put the screws in there. So that's the suspenders to the belt there.
Yeah,
that's such a cool system. One of the other unique aspects we touched on briefly is this Ray Ross bridge. And, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a very unique take on how to do a bridge, no saddles. And Aaron, can you give us a little bit of insight into what led you down this path of designing this bridge?
Wow, that could turn into a really long story. Trying to keep it dense. I was overwhelmed with a compulsion to build instruments in the garage. And somewhere through that process, me coming up with the kind of bass that I thought I wanted to have, I ended up with just a very simple mechanical elevation problem. In that, and I think I probably mentioned this to Tom, all the basses that I build have a back angle to the neck, kind of like a Les Paul does. And for me, it was a simple decision because ergonomically, it's real comfortable to play a bass if it's got a back angle in the neck, but it's one of those things that you can't necessarily mass produce. So I understand why most guitar companies would not do that. But if I'm in the garage, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to make what I want to make. So I set out to solve this elevation problem that manifests in the bass design that I was working on. I wasn't really looking to change, waveforms and, to rearrange the cue and all of these other really deep nuances that came from this experience. When I finally rigged something up in the garage and I plucked a string, it was like, oh my goodness, there really is something happening here that is not just a solution to my problem. And from there, I think by the time I got to bass number 12, I had everything on it that I thought should be there for a bass guitar. And I had one of these functioning prototype bridges on it. Ultimately ended up making my way to a NAMM show and meeting some people. And, people at NAMM are very honest about what they're looking at. Nobody there has time to really, hoo-ha around with, well, this could be cool. But I showed it to some people and one of them was like, well, will this go on any guitar? I'm like, well, no, because I kind of make them for my guitar. Well, if you could make this to where it would fit on any guitar, that would really be something. I think you should work on that. So that's why I went home and I just scrunched everything down and made it as tiny as possible in order to fit essentially on probably 95% of the basses out there. this kind of setup is not going to work with a tailpiece. Obviously, if it's a Warwick or something, I'm not looking to, change the way that they do things. By removing one very simple piece of interference to the instrument itself, it kind of opens the door to everything that a bass wanted to do already, but you didn't have a chance to hear it because these tones and these sounds and these frequencies and the modes that you guys are hearing, like Fred, if you're playing this bass and you're like, what's happening there. I should throw in here that, and I think at least Kim Brubaker knows this, I'm a carpenter and a drywall guy. I'm not a physicist. I didn't go to college to learn how to graph out, all of these secrets of the universe. I'm a dude that was working in the garage. So even I have questions about the thing that ended up coming from me, in that one of the guys on Talk Bass turned out to be an acoustic physicist in St. Andrews College in Scotland. He's writing a white paper about this right now because he reached out and was like, listen, this is some really interesting stuff and I'd like to do some research. And it was because of him. Jonathan Kemp is his name. He has his own kind of strings. You guys ought to look those up. He's the one who called me and said, look, I have managed to isolate a bit of what's happening here, in that if you guys are looking at your bass from the headstock down to the bridge, I don't know if you can see my hands. Okay. The nuts up here, the bridge is down there. If you could hold one of these infrared deals on the strings, when you hit a string right there at the beginning of the string on the saddle, it creates a bird's nest. There is a scrambled kind of a waveform that emanates from that, and that's caused by the interference of the saddle itself. So what I did was I took the interference off of that string, and what this physicist managed to deduce is that now when you look down the same aspect that I'm describing towards a Ray Ross bridge, you see a very clear vertical line, a very clear horizontal line, very clear diagonal lines in which the string is actually moving through each of the vibrational modes. I believe there's 7. In which case, I don't know if you can see 7 perfect points of delineation throughout where that string is doing what it's doing. But it certainly does isolate them. And it allows each one of those strings to do what it is that you hear. So from an uneducated man trying to explain essentially what just happened, is that I don't believe, and I'm lacking evidence here. I've never even played one of Kevin's basses. I know that I would love it. I don't think that I made his bass something else. The only thing Ray Ross did was it opened the door to the frequencies that bass was already producing from the day that it was created. I'm real creationary with the stuff that I'm thinking about. I always look at it in terms like that. So say like a P bass, if you put my bridge on a P bass, you still hear a P bass when you're playing it. The difference is now you're hearing all of the P bass. In that kind, sometimes people find that unsettling. They don't know why their guitar is making this sound. And my response to that, it was already making that sound. I just let it out the door. So it's not necessarily good bass, bad bass type of an arrangement, but what it does mean is that with the signal this clean going into your signal chain, whatever it is that you're playing through. I love a tube amp personally. I don't know how you guys feel about that stuff. Whatever it is that I'm plugging into the tube amp is the cleanest possible signal that instrument is capable of producing. From there, you can make that as dirty as you want. You can put all the grungy, crunchy, squealy, overdriven phaser, flanger, all the stuff that we love about playing a bass. You can put all that stuff right over the top of it. You just get more of it. So when Kevin decided to do this, and I really wish that I had one of these basses because I'm super curious about the customizable preamps that pop in and out of there. Because I already kind of have an idea of what Ray Ross is doing to a bass, but being able to have that many options. Kevin, how many preamps have you got?
Well, we've experimented over the last several years with, maybe a half dozen. Right now, it's a matter of getting the preamps and the parts.
Yeah. Okay.
So, we've got two just to start with. We're going to add a third. So Barlini, Aguilar, and then John East would be the next
Okay.
that we're going to incorporate, and then keep expanding on that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
this is on top of the passive module.
Yeah.
That every base comes with, and I obsess over these things, and we got about as clean a signal path as we can logically make.
Yeah, the active thing is very interesting to me. I think just by default, the bridge has more natural volume to it just by itself. And I've had a lot of people try a bass that has one of these bridges on it, and 90% of the time they think that they're playing an active bass. Now, me personally, in my workings in the garage, which are nothing like what Kevin's got, I'd never bothered to build a bass that had an active preamp in it. I love the idea that there are all these little tonal palettes that you can sample and experiment with, and I'm all about the economy of having one bass that does 3 or 4 very specific things. That really makes my motor run, but I can't wait to hear what each one of those are going to sound like and do.
Well, with that in mind, and definitely, Kevin, you need to get Aaron one of these basses to check him out. But
I won't want to send it back.
Yeah, another piece of the puzzle here that I think really deserves some more attention here, of course, are Howard's pickups. I've seen a lot of Howard's pickups in different basses at various NAMM shows and whatnot, but this was the first time that I kind of had some quality time to really spend, playing through a bunch of rigs that I know very, very well. And I love the reverse PJ. That's my favorite. But and I compared this to some other really nice basses, even with the same pickup configuration. And Howard, you've got some special things going on there. Is this a standard set of yours, or was this something you did custom for Kevin?
It's a hybrid between something completely custom and something that I make for other people. It's definitely, I'd say 50-50 tailored to Brubaker's specifications based on what I already do. And what I already do is, well, I grew up playing 60s jazz basses and P basses as a teenager. And I'm just trying to recreate those sounds and feelings. And it's more about the feeling for me. When I'm at the gig, I want to be able to hit my bass and play it hard and just have it keep expanding with as little or no compression at all, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So in a way, and I know this is going to sound kind of hokey, but it's more of a tactile feel than it is a tone.
And it works well with the Ray Ross bridge, I must say.
I get it. Ray Ross gets it. I totally understood everything that guy just said.
Yeah.
I've seen your bridge, and I am intrigued by it. But anyways, to get back to it, and then the set that I make for this Brubaker bass, over the years, I've looked at a lot of P basses and jazz basses, and then when I was doing repairs, I'd get guys coming in with like a 60s P bass, and they're like, "Oh, I want to sound like Jocko. Can you put a jazz bass pickup in there?" Or they'd show up with a bass and like, some guy crudely routed a pickup made by another company that I'm not going to mention. It's a jazz bass pickup, and it's kind of in between the pickguard and the bridge, which is way too close to the bridge. But the problem is like the output level of the P bass pickup is way hotter than the jazz bass. And these guys were always like, these pickups, it's still noisy. I turn both of the pickups on and they just don't mix well. And over the years, I realized like P bass pickups, like good 60s or 50s P bass pickups are way hotter than jazz bass pickups. So they don't mix well. So with Brubaker and with any PJ set that I make now, I underwind the P bass pickup so that it matches the jazz bass pickup.
Ah, that's what it is. Okay, there's some of the secret sauce.
Yeah.
I did notice, like on my notes here, I'm like, I was going to ask Howard, how did you get them to be so balanced to each other? Not only are they balanced in volume, but they're also balanced in the sense of the precision type characteristics and the jazz type characteristics. So that's cool.
He also dipped them in hot sauce wax. No, I'm just kidding.
A lot of stuff in the wax. It's just But yeah, so like when I wind pickups for people, and especially P-base guys, if they say I want a P-base pickup, I always say, is it just a P-base or is there another pickup with it? And then from there, I can know what I'm supposed to do, because a P-base by itself is going to be very different from PJ.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's a question. Maybe I'm not sure if this is John, Kevin, or Howard, but one of the things I noticed between the two pickups when I swapped between even the Aguilar module and passive mode, and then pull that out and put in the straight up, and it's a volume tone, passive. The interaction between the pickups themselves seemed a little bit different, and the overall passive tone was a bit different. Is that a volume blend type of a thing compared to volume? Is there something else going on there?
No, it's the passive is the baseline, to quote a terrible pun here. So that's nothing. As soon as you add any active circuit into a bass, I don't care how good it is. I have basses with amazing preamps. It changes the tone. Even, as you said, discovered in passive mode, because all of a sudden it's going through a switch, it's going through other pots. Then there's some tricks, like our passive module, we use Bourne's sealed pots, which are not carbon pots. They're a Cermet pot. They're super clean. And I picked them for that reason. They are really, really clean. Bourne's rates those, I think, for 100,000 rotations. Mm-hmm. These are basically aerospace grade parts. They don't get noisy. They don't wear. As soon as you go to what most manufacturers use, which is a lesser grade pot with their preamps, you've got some degradation of the signal there. It's just, and you're going through actually a lot more wire. If you open up our passive module, it's a straight line straight through. I've got the signal path as short as I can get it in there.
I was amazed myself how well it sounded just in passive.
Oh, absolutely.
I never really heard one of my basses sound like that in passive mode. So I guess, I'm like talking to John saying, well, let's use the Bourne's pots, or let's use, higher quality pots with everything we do. Problem is we can't seem to find them to add in, but that's our intention to do that. So I guess with active circuits, it doesn't quite matter as much.
No, it does. It does. I will always argue for higher quality all through the chain, because it's a additive process in the chain.
I agree with that.
So
yeah.
But that is the intention. Yes, we want to make everything as high quality, of course, as we can.
Yeah. So going forward, if we can, if the factories get back online the way they need to, at least for us, and we can start to get these parts, we will be effectively upgrading all the active circuits, and they will sound better. Mm-hmm. They will sound even better.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question on your active modules. You use this. In other words, when you make these modules, you're putting the same volume pots or volume blend on every one.
We put the same volume and blend control, but it is not the same pots we use with the passive setup. Just because the value differences, and in some cases the size issue.
Yeah,
because the passive pots they're square bodied and they're bigger.
Okay.
So there are a few obstacles we had to overcome to get all the components into that piece right there. And the reason we were able to get to this point is because over the years things got smaller and smaller. We're still not 100% there, but preamp manufacturers now are starting to reduce their preamps to the size of a little tiny wafer thin chip.
As the manufacturers are starting to go to surface mount components and things, the size is dropping in some cases 50-60%.
So with that added space, we got more real estate in there to work with. But yeah, it's still a bit of a challenge, but we've gotten to this point, and it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to have achieved what we did. So
Hey, quick question. Are there any other pickup options that you are working with Howard with or being offered right now other than the PJ? I guess JJ would be one, right? But are there soap bars that you guys are doing together yet or anything like that? Out of curiosity.
You answered that.
yeah, we have.
Yeah.
We the dual coil, the P2 shapes, or whatever you want to call them. Sorry. Dual coil humbuckers so far, and we're just getting started. I mean, I know what's coming down the pike here. Just, based on what I've done over the last 30 years, every time you want to go in one direction, the customer comes along and says, could you do this? And next thing you know, so yes, we're probably going to mix it up a little bit with the jazz bases and, the custom stuff that we build too. Like the dual coils sound great, Howard. John wired the one bass that we were showing earlier in dual coils. They sound fabulous.
Yeah, that just sounds ridiculous.
So yeah, I mean, what do you got?
Yeah, what do you want?
You got some free samples there you want to send us? I'm
Sure.
just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, that was a question I had was, are the Ray Ross Bridge and Howard's pickups available on obviously the JXB line, but are they also available on your other custom instruments, Kevin?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not limiting anything. I want to see where it goes. Let's get them out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
Hunker down, Howard.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
And,
I'll be right back. Hold on.
And question to Aaron, is what's the max with your offering, max amount of strings you're offering on your bridge? Is it 5, 6 more? Where are you right now?
So the 4-string is a straight up 19 millimeter. That's just like everybody else's 4-string is 19 millimeter. The 5-string, we have those in 17 millimeter and 19 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bit of a nod to some of the, once you get into 5-string hardware, the standard 5-hole pattern goes out the window. Some companies have 3 screws, some companies have 11 screws. So coming up with something universal for that becomes a lot more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I probably have had 100 people ask me for a 6-string version of this. And according to the people that I work with, that is not enough of a request to warrant making 6-string bridges. So 6-string guys, sorry about that. But what I am doing, I've got a whole batch of stuff that should be ready. Summer NAMM in Anaheim. I guess we're doing that in June this year, for whatever that's going to look like.
Winter NAMM in the summer in Anaheim.
Yeah, I know. Police state, no police state. I can't decide. In the meantime, I'm doing some individual like monorail bridges that can be applied to anybody's 6-string or 7-string or 8, whatever it is that they're playing. A set of those, and then I've got a couple of other things that we're working on too. I can't say a whole lot about that at the moment, but I'll drop you a hint. It's literally been to space.
Wow.
like real outer space. I've got some outer space stuff going on, and I'm hoping to have that ready by Summer NAMM also.
Well, I don't want to use up every talking point we can have because I want to have maybe some future discussions. But I definitely wanted people to get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain and some of the magic that goes into these bases. And Fred, thanks so much for sending it to us for review.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
And I think, Fred, I hope you're on the same page that I am, that there's something really special about this JXB in the straight up passive mode with the Ray Ross Bridge and Howard's pickups. I mean, there is something synergistic going on there that's greater than the sum of the parts, isn't it?
It's magic, man. I mean, you can see behind me, I probably have 40 bases in this little room right now. And that thing, from a tone perspective, that thing kills them all. I'm sorry. It just does with the passive module.
And these go for what, around $3,000, right, Kevin?
The target price on the, let's call it the standard model. It's $24.99 on a 4, $25.99 on a 5.
And then the black.
And then the black series bumps it up a little bit, like $200. A little more complicated, a little more labor intensive. And,
Absolute bargain.
It is a
Bargain.
bargain.
Yeah.
It really is.
That is so reasonably priced. I'm just amazed.
Built here in the
Good
U.S.
job.
with all that custom stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yep.
built in the
It really
US.
is.
Well, let's all, you know, let's see what it does. I'm excited to see what it does and see where it goes.
Hope we sell a bunch of them. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you
We
all for
should-
spending your time with us today.
We should do this again. This is fun.
All right.
Thank you so
And
much.
awesome,
Tom.
guys.
Head over to basegearmag.com for more reviews.
Yeah,
See
thanks,
you guys
Tom.
later.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
guys.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Have a good one.
See you, Howard.